There's a certain fascination about water, but it can be dangerous if we don't take the proper safety precautions. When we don't, the dive rescue team of our Milwaukee Fire Department is there to help, and not just when the water is flowing freely.
Nice throw.
Basically, we're in our 36 years as having a dive team, and it came from a real group of characters. We had a fellow by the name of Joe Pellegrin, who was the instigator or originator of this dive rescue team, and he would actually go in the water with a cigar in the corner of his mouth and go underwater and do all his diving operations.
There have been a lot of interesting stories and characters over the years, says Gardner, Special Teams Coordinator before being sworn in as Chief on June 3rd. And many changes in training and equipment in those 36 years.
Our last Assistant Chief, Don Jackson, was a member of that original dive team, and he said that he thought these people were a little bit crazy, and that's essentially what it took at that time, because you see how hazardous the waterways are and the profession that these people have, and now they're going to try to rescue somebody in a very tenuous situation. But they didn't have the equipment that we have today. Today we have wave runners, we have a fireboat that's basically designed for small type watercraft fires and for quick rescue type operations. We have a beautiful response vehicle. We have 35 to 40 members strong. Just the best of equipment. We work with dry suits so that the personnel are kept warm and dry, and that they're not exposed to the pollutants that the water also brings.
The dive rescue team is headquartered at Engine Company 3 on the south side. Regular firefighters and paramedics most of the year, they train year-round, not just with special water-related equipment, but in the classroom as well. As one instructor pointed out, most of the deaths of firefighters during in-water rescues are the result of a lack of knowledge and training.
Our number one priority is we can't provide a service for the community if our people go down. Our priorities are safety and our training, and we train that way as well, to provide safety for our personnel so that we can complete an operation to facilitate a rescue of another person who needs our assistance. If we go down in the process because of our failure to be safe-minded or to go about our training as we know it, we're not doing the public a service. Okay, we number one want to take care of our people. Yes, in order to dive, we want to protect our divers from the environment so they can stay in that environment longer to get to the individual, to get them out.
All ladder companies in the city are now equipped with water safety equipment bags and have been trained how to use them. But for the serious water-related emergencies, the special unit is called.
Besides the van itself and the equipment it contains, I would say the latest, and I guess what you'd say is the state-of-the-art of dry suit equipment, where not only do we have to be concerned about possible contaminants in the water, say in the river situation, but the biggest concern is the temperature of the water and how long our divers can stay in the water to operate, to facilitate a rescue and a save. The dry suits afford you that. With insulating liners underneath and the dry suit over you, you are somewhat totally encapsulated in the suit and protected from the environment that the water offers.
Like other specialized units in the Milwaukee Fire Department, when dive rescue is called, the area in which they work is not left unprotected.
If we are, for example, at a fire-related emergency or an EMS-related emergency responding, and there is a dive incident or water-related emergency in the city, the protocol for the department is in place for all the specialty teams, where a unit will respond directly to our location, either fighting fire or at an EMS run. They will take over our operations. We will respond back to quarters, get our equipment, and respond to the scene.
Swift water, cold water, bad visibility, objects hidden beneath the surface, just some of the dangers that face the dive rescue team. Water provides a lot of recreational activities, but many hazards as well for the public and the firefighters.
There are a lot of inherent hazards that you don't normally have in another profession that's hazardous firefighting. So you're going beyond the normal scope into another hazard field, and those are some of the things that we train for and we look at. As you can see, the movement of the water, it's very shallow right now, but there aren't too many people that can walk in that type of water, so have to be very careful and respect the water itself.
It's not only the dive team, it's the fire department as a whole. When you see a group of individuals that are trained as well as they are, and what they go through and what they do to provide a service for the community is, I guess, sum it up, I'd have to say impressive. It's very impressive.
As qualified as they are, members of the dive rescue team never stop learning.
There's a yearly evolution through the seasons, how we train, and repetition is how you become proficient in your abilities and how you operate, and also improve and learn by your faults or possible mistakes that you might encounter and develop better techniques.
Graffiti vandalism is being taken seriously in Milwaukee. Arrests are up substantially. Taggers are being punished. Graffiti is being removed. And people are responding to the Tag-A-Tagger program announced in March by Mayor John Norquist.
All they have to do is call the graffiti hotline. They don't have to give their name. All they have to tell us is, listen, we saw the so-and-so tagging this building, and this is the tag name he used, and he lives in the area. And that's all they have to do. They can hang up once we have that information. We use that information and we compile it, because as we gather more and more information on the same taggers out there, we get to know them, we get to know their style, and we get to know how many places they tag.
In addition, police have conducted several undercover sting operations. After graffiti is removed from a site, police use the bare walls as bait and wait for taggers to return. 30 did and were arrested.
Well, we will have more sting operations, and again, it depends on the community. They identify areas that we know are going to get vandalized, then we will do these again. The chief is committed to this crime. The mayor's dedicated to it, because we have a beautiful city, and these things kind of scar it, and it scares off the business and it scares our citizens. So we're very committed to getting rid of it, and I think we'll be doing some more.
It may be frustrating for property owners to remove graffiti and see it return, but studies show that the odds it will return drop dramatically when it is removed quickly.
And we found that each time we did a building, the chances of it coming back were lessened. So it is a success. 50% the first time won't come back, and 50% after that. So if you do it 3, 4, 5 times, you'll find that there's a pattern there. These kids are not going to waste their time on a building that's going to get painted right away. They've only got so much spray paint in their budget, and we tend to outspend them.
City law requires property owners to remove graffiti as soon as it is practical. Its removal can be costly, but officials point out the city is ready to help the poor, the elderly, and the disabled.
The city has contracted with people to come and help them remove the graffiti. If they want to remove it themselves and they just need paint, and I'm talking about residential places, we'll give them the primer to cover. And it's important that they understand that not all graffiti can be covered by paint you buy in a store. You have to get a certain type of primer that'll cover it for you, and we'll do that. If people don't know what to use on their brick or on their aluminum siding, give us a call at Graffiti Hotline. We have a technician that'll come out, take a look at their problem, show them how to remove it without damaging their property anymore.
And for the second year, the city is also offering grants to business organizations to clean up graffiti in shopping districts. Qualified groups match city funds dollar for dollar. Graffiti vandals can be charged with either a misdemeanor crime or a felony. In 1995, police arrested 215 people for violations of city and state laws. Through May of this year, there have been another 81 arrests.
And the police department's really been great. They've had some operations out there. They've made arrests they started clearing, and the courts now are holding people responsible for the damage they're doing to property. We have laws in place that give our municipal judges some creativity in sentencing people to community work to help them remove the graffiti they put on.
Community service is becoming more popular as punishment for graffiti vandalism. Last year, 51 people were sentenced to learn firsthand how destructive it can be and the hard work involved with cleaning it up. It's something few taggers think about.
No, it never came to mind. Would never think about that.
Why not?
I guess it really didn't, I don't know. Guess it just never did come to mind how much it would cost to take it off and the time that it takes to take it off and that.
Taggers often look at their work as art. Many just want to see their names in public view. But it is a crime, and police say people must be willing to prosecute.
That's the only way these young people are going to learn that this is our property, and we're not going to tolerate this. We've had cities, other cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, sent people down there to see how well we're doing, and they adopted our program. Other cities across the country call us for information, and we tell them it's a zero tolerance. What you ask from your neighborhood is what you get, and what you get from your neighborhood is what you deserve. And if you're not willing to roll up your sleeves and help us fight this problem, then we encourage you to find a city that will tolerate graffiti, because this one won't.
Remember, graffiti in progress is a crime that can be reported to 911. And your tips to tag a tagger can also help to further reduce the amount of graffiti vandalism in our city.
This is not art, it's vandalism, it's a crime, it hurts people, it costs people money. And that it's an organized effort to damage a community, a house, a city, and that's what it does. It's not art.
I'm very pleased to say that we have made significant progress. Now, we have by no means won this war, but we've won a lot of battles, and I think the citizens need to understand that they're not to give up hope.
A great deal of progress has been made in the fight against graffiti. Officials say that will continue only if the people of Milwaukee stay involved and refuse to turn over their neighborhoods to taggers. Garages must meet setback and size requirements. Decks must comply with safety standards. Fences can't infringe on neighboring properties.
We usually do these simpler permits on a walk-in basis. Our hours are 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. We're open during lunch. And if you bring in the information as what you want to do, typically we write those up right away and they're issued. And you don't have to wait for them or anything like that.
Hi. Can I help you? Yes. I'd like to get a fence.
You can bring in detailed professional drawings or your own homemade sketch. An examiner will look over your plans and answer any questions you might have.
And in that area, along the lot line, you're allowed a 4-foot-high wood or a 6-foot-high chain link.
Okay.
Then in your backyard, that starts at the back of your house and goes to the back of your lot. You're allowed up to a 6-foot-high wood or chain link right along the lot line.
Okay.
It's for the safety of the homeowner and for future people who may purchase the house or for people who use their house. Steps are one of the biggest tripping hazard in the country. If they're built improperly, people fall. So we want a permit for that to make sure that the homeowner builds them properly. Fences, you need a permit because we have to regulate the ordinances. There are specific ordinances on how high you can build it and where you can put it in your yard. And we get calls all the time for people who put up fences improperly, or they're on their neighbors, or whatever. So that's why a permit's required, to make sure it's done properly, it's secure, it's installed properly, and it meets the height restrictions. Same with sheds. Sheds seem simple, but there are zoning codes that require that they have to be put in the backyard. They can't be in the front yard or in the side. They can't. The overhangs can't go over into the neighbor's property. So that's why they have to be inspected to make sure it meets those restrictions.
Once the permit's been issued, that permit goes to a construction inspector, And generally we wait for a phone call from either the contractor or the homeowner to tell us that there's something that's been done that's ready for an inspection. In the case of a deck, we would want to come out once the holes are dug for the posts so that we can see that they're deep enough and in the proper locations. After the foundation has been approved, then we'll come back and look at the framing, the structure itself, and we'll come back then for a third inspection, a final inspection on a deck to ensure that the steps are the correct rise in the run or the tread, and that the handrails are the correct height, and that the spacing between the uprights is within the code requirements.
How about a garage?
Initially, we'll come out to look at the placement of the slab, again in conformance with the zoning regulations, that it's 18 inches from the lot line, and if there's an alley, it's back far enough from the alley. And we'll check the elevation to make sure that it's not too high or too low. Once that's done, then we'll expect a call to make an inspection once the garage has been framed out before any siding or roof sheathing goes on. And then we'll again make a third or a final inspection to ensure that all the trim's been attached, that the doors are on, and that everything else that is there in the finished state conforms with the code.
1- and 2-family homes have one set of rules. Commercial buildings have another. And as you can imagine, permit requirements vary depending on the project.
Any electrical work, any plumbing work, you should call the Plumbing Inspection Division or the Electrical Inspection Division to verify whether a permit's required or not. Typically, any electrical work does require a permit, and only a licensed electrician can pull that permit, not a homeowner.
If you need any information about code requirements, permit procedures and fees, or just have a what-if type of question, call the Building Inspection Permit Desk at 286-2507.
I welcome you here to this conference.
Neighborhood Empowerment Through Community Policing was the title for the seminar. Milwaukee Police Chief Philip Ariola was among those welcoming the participants. A strong supporter of the concept, Ariola said it has produced positive results.
We recognize that crime problems and public safety issues are best addressed when there is a cooperative effort involving the community, the police, and other public service agencies. Our mission statement reflects the commitment that the Milwaukee Police Department has for the delivery of police services to the citizens of the city of Milwaukee, a principled approach. It recognizes a need for more interaction with the community. As a result, the department has embraced community policing and formed cooperative partnerships with the community to address those issues that have a direct impact on the quality of life in our city. The concept of community policing is perhaps the oldest, the most controversial, and the least understood in the criminal justice system. And community policing is, in its best sense, a philosophy and not just a program. It is a philosophy of the police and the community cooperating with one another to ascertain the problems and the needs of the community. And yes, working in harmony to address those needs and solve those problems.
U.S. Attorney Tom Schneider talked about a meeting he had with a group from Milwaukee's Laotian community.
I said, if you're expecting us to come here from either the federal government and the United States Attorney's Office or from the police department to solve the problems of this community, it's not going to happen. And if we're expecting you to decide how you're going to solve all the problems of the community by yourself, that's not going to happen. What we're here what I told them, what we're here at this crime-free forum to do is to build a partnership, because working together, we can bring resources to the table to solve the problems of this neighborhood. And you, the residents of this neighborhood, can bring yourselves and your energy and your commitment to building your own safe and secure environment to the table, to building and resolving the problems of this neighborhood. And that's the partnership we have to form. And essentially, that's what we're here to talk about at this conference, building that partnership between law enforcement and the community.
Through educating each other about ourselves and the people we worked with, acting with sensitivity toward one another, we continue today to gain respect for all that we individually and collectively bring to the table. There have been many differences over the last 4 years, including philosophies such as grassroots versus militaristic. COPAC discovered that what we do with these struggles is up to us. We took that energy and created a process that empowered the people of this community.
The keynote speaker for the seminar was University of Wisconsin law professor Dr. Herman Goldstein, recognized internationally for his work in the area of problem-oriented policing. Goldstein said a change in philosophy, like policing itself, is complex and is never easy.
We have to recognize this is a big country, this is a big state, there are enormous variations, and we have to be sensitive to local situations. We have to know that sort of one size does not fit all. We have to also recognize that change, the kind of change you're involved in now, is not neat. It's not clean cut. There are numerous elements involved that we're trying to affect all at the same time, and they are terribly interrelated, one with the other. They're interdependent. I use the term multidimensional change because whenever we get involved in this, we're moving not on one front, but on 50 fronts at the same time. Past efforts are valuable as we think about change. And so let's not fall into the trap of feeling that we have to discredit what existed in the past in order to make progress. I think as those of us who are immersed in change sometimes fall into that, and one of the high costs is that we offend a lot of people who invested their lifetime in bringing about the earlier changes. When the reality is we need those changes to build upon, and this is a very natural process. And it doesn't, because we want to do something different today, doesn't mean that everything we did in the past had no value.
Goldstein says there is no one definition for community-oriented policing, but that any local answer must not come from outside the community.
And as much as we talk about community policing, there is no manual to implement community policing. And what is good for one city may not be good for another. I think we tend to overestimate the stage of knowledge and development with regard to community policing. And because I have people contact me with the implication that they sense there's the magic formula is out there, they just haven't discovered it, and they want me to send it to them, through the mail. And I have to tell them that it's not there. Much of this stuff has to come from within and from the bottom up, and the development has to occur within each community. And there has to be a Madison plan, there has to be a Milwaukee plan, there has to be an Appleton plan, and each of these will differ a great deal depending upon local circumstances.
If one size does not fit all, if local circumstances determine the approach to community-oriented policing, then what is the Milwaukee Plan? Well, last February we took a close look at what it means and how it's defined in our community. The concept of community-oriented policing is a basic one: to increase cooperation between police and citizens, get them to know each other, appreciate each other's concerns and problems, understand the fight against crime is one police can't do alone.
What you're doing is you're working with the representatives of the city, the Milwaukee Police Department personnel, and the residents to address problems and quality of life issues and crime issues that affect neighborhoods.
More communication that there is, both from the neighborhood level and from the police department level, the better people will understand why decisions and procedures are done in the way that they are.
A major component of Milwaukee's community policing involves neighborhood offices like the Avenues West substation. You can't pay a ticket here or get a parking permit, but you can report crimes and concerns and get to know the officers who work in the neighborhood. Other examples include the satellite office at Capitol Court Shopping Center, the Metcalf Park area where officers work out of a former home, and there are a number of other community outreach offices, each designed to meet specific needs.
Problems are not static, they're not the same throughout the entire city of Milwaukee. And every neighborhood has different problems. So we have to address those problems. We have to tailor our services and our service delivery to address those problems, to reduce or remove those problems.
Neighborhood concerns can range from crime prevention to graffiti, gangs to drug houses. Thousands of block watches and block clubs have been formed with the help of police. Neighbors watch out for each other. Call police when something looks unusual.
People feel more comfortable as a rule talking with their neighbors, at least in the beginning. You know, that's where they begin to learn and identify things that are of a concern to them, and they find that maybe it's a concern to somebody who lives down the block as well.
The nightly Neighbors Watch program is another example of police-community cooperation. There are now 4 of them, not acting as police but reporting unusual, unsafe, and suspicious activities.
It's kind of like a mobile version of a block watch where the neighbors watch out for each other. This one's a little bit bigger in scope where you're watching out for your entire neighborhood. Anytime that you get people involved in what's going on in the neighborhood, that only benefits the police. People end up being trained as better observers, and even when they're not on patrol, they pay more attention to what's going on their own block or in other parts of the neighborhood. As far as the other benefits, people who are walking out on the street appreciate having the mobile watch cars go by. That makes them feel safer. They know that people are watching out for them.
In another initiative, district police captains meet regularly with community organizations, such as the 3rd District Community Safety Coalition. All the concerns of the Sherman Park area resident groups haven't been resolved, but they support community policing and want to see it improved.
We want to make sure that it does impact as far as assisting the residents in the 3rd District to have better police in the area, better policing in the area, let the residents feel safer. We want to improve on a whole lot of things to make the residents feel better here in this area.
One issue that's been very important to the coalition has been the more foot patrol officers in the community, and foot patrol officers that stay in the community, not get rotated on a regular basis. No one's contending that the so-called hot spots where crime might be higher than in other areas don't need additional police officers, but we feel it defeated the purpose of getting the officers to know the community, become familiar with the residents.
One major concern here is that not everyone is committed to the community policing philosophy, that residents and police must accept the concept for it to succeed.
All of us know here, who are within the community, that it has to be in your heart. It has to be in your heart. Some of the foot officers that need to participate more in attending meetings, CBO meetings, meetings with community groups, because that's where the heart of the problem lies. And as soon as you merge these 2 groups together, you have a fascinating and very dynamic force to work for the community and make the residents' lives more better.
Merchants also worry about things like crime, gangs, graffiti, and loitering. Members of the 27th Street Business Association meet periodically with police. Saying they are active partners in the community, the officers encourage the merchants to call them when they notice unusual behavior or activity.
The most important calls at the district level are those calls about things changing in the neighborhood. Because if the officers aren't aware of those changes, we can't address them.
As citizens, business owners, we're the eyes and ears, and if the police department isn't contacted, they just can't respond to what's going on.
Other police community initiatives include National Night Out, bike patrols and foot patrols that make it easier for police to interact with residents, more diversity training for new recruits, more attention to police-community relations on entrance and promotional exams. The department says it will continue to work with all citizens to address common concerns.